Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 7th of June 2021, and these are the stories that will be under discussion during the course of the show. We will begin with Pakistan's roadmap as far as the peace in South Asia is concerned, and of course the Kashmir issue, that is the issue that is prevalent between the two important nations of South Asia, Pakistan and India, is concerned. Prime Minister Imran Khan gave a message to Reuters in an interview very recently, in which he said, if there is a roadmap on Kashmir, then yes, we will talk. Of course, he was referring to any progress between the two countries that was linked to the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is going to be our first segment of the day. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we will be discussing about the Asia-Pacific Group on money laundering that has improved Pakistan's rating on 21 of the 40 technical recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force, otherwise known as the FATF. We know about that very well against money laundering and terror financing, but it has retained it on enhanced follow-up for sufficient outstanding requirements. Will Pakistan be eligible to move to the white list now in the next meeting? We'll be discussing that in our second segment. Then in our thirdly, we'll be talking about a leading American business magazine, Forbes, that has lauded government's efforts to tackle the pandemic, that is COVID-19, and stabilize and grow Pakistan's economy, saying that the government has been successful in reviving its economy through prudent policies, which are expected to grow by around 4%. And of course, this is very heartening and good news as far as Pakistan's economy is concerned when we see what's happening just across the border in India. Then we'll be talking about the World Environment Day that was successfully globally hosted by Pakistan on the 5th of this month. And of course, different world leaders have also lauded Pakistan's efforts as far as combating the effects of climate change and the different measures that Pakistan has taken, whether it be the 10 billion tree tsunami or the e-vehicle policy or the no plastic queues and so many other measures, the green bond, the blue bond, that also have been put forward by the government as we speak. And finally, we'll be talking about Pakistan's effort and fight against polio. A special polio campaign of varied duration has begun in 124 districts of Pakistan today. Teams will be administering the polio vaccine to the children below the age of 5 years to protect them from the polio disease. And that's very important because Pakistan has been fighting this polio. Now let's go to our first segment, and that segment concerns the roadmap to Kashmir. And of course, our Prime Minister Imran Khan, while being interviewed by the Reuters, has said that the only way forward as far as the roadmap on Kashmir is concerned, he said, then of course we'll be talking with India, and of course this is one of the preliminary conditions on talks with India, that is the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. More in the following report.
The peace of South Asia has been incredibly held hostage to a dangerous flashpoint, that is Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan has vigorously lent moral, political and diplomatic support to Kashmiris, along with pressing India to jointly work out a sustainable roadmap for its Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Instead of paying heed to multiple pleas of Pakistan for dialogue, India repealed the autonomous status of Valley under the shadow of brute force. This unilateral attempt to drastically alter status quo ante of disputed region proved to be the final nail in the coffin of civilized workable bilateral relationship between Pakistan and India. The egoistic BJP beats the drum of war to grease its political machinery, but ultimate victims of this brazen political opportunism are besieged Kashmiris. New Delhi's insistent reliance upon coercive diplomacy has eclipsed Pakistan's efforts to propagate economic diplomacy in the region embroiled in poverty. Despite back-channel talks, Pakistan-India peace process is moving at snail's pace because Indian obduracy regarding its Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and outright denial of third-party mediation continue to sabotage any confidence-building measure. The consensus of both states to respect the 2003 ceasefire line along LOC is only silver lining of these engagements facilitated by common friends. The Balakot misadventure 2019, which brought two nuclear-armed neighbors at brink of war, is a stark reminder that is Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is focal point of peace in South Asia. Prime Minister Imran Khan rightly hinges restoration of Valley's previous status to talks with India on Friday, as according to Premier, normalizing relations with India at present would be a major betrayal to Kashmiris. The Thus, Pakistan's scramble for peaceful resolution of its Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir question must be top agenda in parleys with India. South Asia cannot prosper and thrive by relegating Kashmir conundrum to back burner, as it is not merely a territorial dispute for Pakistan, but it is about inalienable rights of Kashmiris. As the heroism and dedication of third generation of Kashmiris is keeping the indigenous resistance against Indian occupation alive, Pakistan will remain deeply committed to Kashmir cause.
And I'll talk about the peace between Pakistan and India, and of course, a precondition of peace in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and the resolution of the issue of illegally Jammu and Kashmir. We have been joined by Dr. Rizwan Naseer. He's a foreign affairs expert. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, when we talk of peace between Pakistan and India, and when we talk of one of the major preconditions, that is Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, what's your take on it? Should we be cautiously optimistic, or do you feel that there's going to be a status quo as far as this issue is concerned that has been plaguing South Asia since decades?
Well, Omar, we should look at the dynamics of the conflict first. If we analyze the conflict is very long, but sometimes the regime type also matters. I would like to draw your attention towards Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He was also BJP leadership, but when after 1998 he realized that they have to engage with Pakistan, and he visited Pakistan and Lahore Declaration was signed. This was his vision that they cannot, because Pakistan had declared itself as a nuclear power at that time. So before that, India was showing more hegemonic posture to Pakistan. But afterwards, now, in the current scenario, Narendra Modi, who has a history of atrocities and committing a lot of violence, especially starting from Gujarat, and later on he became prime minister. He's the same person who was not allowed in 2004 to travel to other countries because of the violation of human rights. When he became a head of the state, he had his agenda in his mind to gain popularity. So he capitalized Kashmir issue. Kashmir is a thing where in both sides, you see people are very sentimental about it. He actually revoked when special status of Kashmir, that was the last actually nail in the coffin of Kashmir issue, where Pakistan said, now we need to talk only when and only you put it back to the same status, because you revoke the article. Because now what will happen, 35A, that is where
But
Pakistani
Dr. Saab,
actually.
we know the past as far as the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir issue is concerned. We know what has happened since 2019. We know the precarious conditions under which the Kashmiris are living as we speak in that valley. I would like to revert to what our Prime Minister Imran Khan said while being interviewed by Reuters. He said, if there is a roadmap, then yes, we will talk. And then he said, even if they give us a roadmap, that these are the steps that we will take to basically undo what they did, which is illegal against international law and United Nations resolutions, then that is acceptable. Do you feel it will be acceptable to India?
Well, Indians are deliberating on it, and whenever there is such kind of proposal from Pakistan, and let me tell you very honestly, the resistance they are facing from Kashmiris is also unacceptable for them, because they had in their mind, once they just revoke the status, Kashmir will be fine with them, and Pakistan will be also fine. But that did not happen. Their calculation went wrong. Now, Prime Minister Imran Khan is also saying that you must have a roadmap in your mind. I personally believe what is going to be in this scenario, Indian policymakers are thinking 35A should be reverted back to the same before the August 5th kind
But
of
isn't there a
policy.
difference between the Indian policymakers and the Indian government?
Indian government, actually, we say a lot of like they are democracy, and Indian policymakers, I say, there are like Ajit Doval. He is always like the agreement, ceasefire agreement. He is being said that he is behind that agreement. Hey, they are giving like this kind of people, we normally call them, they are the policymakers who are influencing directly to Kashmir policy in India. So the government, they also have opposition in that. So we cannot say that the whole government also opposition part of government. So opposition is on the different page. Opposition was also saying that what you have done is wrong. We have been long, like we had a lot of leaders in India who did not do this, what Modi has done. And Modi, a day before yesterday, I was reading, Rahul Gandhi was saying, 7 years of India, what have you done? You have done nothing. the promises you came to power with, you have done nothing. 31 million people are without electricity in India. You said, I will be bringing jobs to India. You said, and let me tell you one more thing. It's so alarming that in India, uh, last week there was the killing of Indian Pandit, and they were blaming Pakistan for it. And last week there was also one more incident which is really alarming. The uranium, which is 7 kilogram of
Of
uranium,
course,
six
not
kilograms
the
of
first incident, more than one incident of uranium that has
yes.
come up.
And I said, if the black market is wide open in India, there can be a raw atomic device which can be exploded in India. I don't know
Of
who is,
course.
but ultimately they have to look after this. Their intelligence agencies are complete failure in that regard. And whatever is easy, Pakistan is a soft target for them. They start blaming Pakistan for it.
Of course, but this is not the first time, Dr. Saab, that India has blamed Pakistan, and that too fraudulently. And it will. This is something that will continue. Our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister have said this in the past as well, but that there might be a false flag operation, that they are going to put on the blame on Pakistan as well. When it comes to our Prime Minister, and I'll revert again to the interview, he said that Pakistan has always wanted a civilized and an open relationship with India, but he said that India had crossed a red line by revoking the autonomy of occupied Kashmir. They have to come back to us to resume dialogue. At their moment, there is no response from India, quote unquote. Now, in these times when we are hearing a lot of back channel diplomacy between Pakistan and India, should, in your point of view, India or the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir issue be on the top of the agenda as far as preconditions for talks is concerned?
Well, Omar, like, let me tell you, currently in India, especially even in Kashmir, there is a lots of troop movement, and people are confused. If you go to Indian newspaper,
But
even
why are
Indian
people confused?
politicians,
I mean, Dr. Saab,
they
I
are
fail to
confused.
understand. This is an open and shut case. This is something that people understand very well what's happening there.
Actually, there are some voices which I call them rumors. The
All
rumor
right.
is that the 35A is going to be implemented again, because there
Okay.
was concern the people coming from outside will be turning Kashmiri people into minority. And that is what Kashmiris will never allow. On the other side, 370, which India was actually union territory, was declared. That is going to be okay for the some of the Indian people, even for Kashmiri, some of the Kashmiri. There are, so this is what there are rumors. This is going on at this time. Even I'm talking to you on media. This kind of things, I believe, if such kind of message is going from Pakistani side, Prime Minister Imran Khan says that if there is a roadmap, I believe they take it very seriously. And now they have no option. You have seen COVID has devastated India very badly. You have seen that Indians are no more position. Afghanistan, America left India, has Indian, all the investments sank in Afghanistan. They have no hope.
But
LAC with
in your point of
China.
view, Dr. Saab, shouldn't better sense prevail in India and in the Indian government, despite their hegemonic designs, despite their extreme right-wing policy of the BJP? Shouldn't it be time that the Indian government realize what's best for their people?
Well, actually, Indian government, there are some pressure groups as well. Unfortunately, in BJP and RSS mentality, they always are not going to find the solution to the problems. They always looking for something which they can capitalize for their popularity. Unfortunately,
I
otherwise,
agree.
I would say this is a high time when Prime Minister is asking, let's have, if you have a roadmap, let's talk about this. And Omar, for your audience as well, I would like to draw your attention when LSE conflict was going on between China and India. That was a time when India was showing leniency that they could talk to Pakistan, but Pakistan will always talk to India on its own terms. Pakistan will never actually compromise on the sacrifices of Kashmiri people. That is the reason.
All right. Also, Dr. Saab, do you feel that Pakistan should link its trade relationship with India also to the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir issue?
I would say no. Actually, I personally am a supporter of trade with India. But once we start a trade, I also support the first thing should be CBMs, confidence building measures. The confidence building measures, the exchange of people, exchange of artists, and exchange of delegations, exchange of academics. But I am saying if we start trade, no doubt it increases dependency between two countries. But at the same time, I would like to say if the Kashmiris are supporting this, that it should happen, then according to the will of the Kashmiris, that must be allowed conditionally, that because Indian government must listen to the voices of Kashmiris as well as Pakistan demands, because it's a bilateral issue. It's not a unilateral issue.
But I mean, it's very interesting that you say that it's a bilateral issue, it's not a unilateral issue, because when it comes to India, sometimes it's a trilateral, sometimes it's a bilateral, sometimes it's a unilateral issue as far as India is concerned. You remember the amount of times Donald Trump had said that he was ready to be the mediator between India and Pakistan as far as these two issues are concerned. But at the same time, you know, it's very pertinent that as far as the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, that between Pakistan and India, if there's going to be some kind of progress, that this issue be on the top of the agenda, and that India realizes and relents to talk about this, because this is an issue that is not only an issue of the subcontinent, it is a grave human rights issue as well. Dr. Saab, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is also a grave human rights issue. We've had the United Nations also talk about it time and again, but nevertheless, India hasn't yet budged even an inch as far as coming towards the resolution of this issue is concerned. Now, you talk of confidence building measures, you talk of maybe resumption of trade as a first step between, as far as starting something between India is concerned. But don't you feel until India does, if for example India and Pakistan resume trade and confidence building measures, do you feel India will still think about Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as an issue, or will it put it on the back bender, or I mean on the back burner, so that other things continue but the issue remains as such?
Omar, first I would like to mention one thing very categorically. It is a very long pending issue which has not been resolved. United Nations resolutions are on it. It is an issue which is drawing attention of the world community, especially European people who are witnessing a grave violation of human rights is going on. On the other side, when it comes to Indians are really sick and tired of this issue. They are really, there are some sane voices as well. But the problem is that the current government, which normally, and everyone actually, even Prime Minister Imran Khan termed it as a fascist government, they are actually trying to capitalize this issue. I was hopeful. I would like to say once again, even Agra summit was also a kind of partial achievement, and Kashmir issue was just signatures away, that we could see that how seriously both sides were deliberating on it. But the problem is that when such advancement is happening on both sides, there are some peace spoilers as well. There is sometimes there are explosions in Kashmir Valley. There are sometimes other issues where the both sides, especially, they become suspicious of this. In this regard, I would like to say one thing. This issue is not going to be resolved very easily. India must seriously deliberate on one thing. They revoke this Article 35A. At least they should partially do this, undo, and afterwards, eventually, they should conversate. I would like to say, and if you have seen, East Timor was resolved and South Sudan was resolved, is just because the world was seeing a grave violation of human rights. If the world is not seeing violation of human rights in three issues, one is Palestine, one is Kashmir, and one is Rohingya, the world is not witnessing any kind of human rights, and that is so, I would say, it's so alarming. And this way, if it continues, I'm afraid the people will lose their faith in the United Nations and other
All right.
organizations which
All
carry
right.
the responsibility of
Putting the
ensuring.
United Nations aside, Dr. Saab, last question as far as this issue is concerned. What should be Pakistan's way forward, in your point of view as an analyst? Step by step, what
uh,
should be the first three steps that Pakistan needs to take?
Pakistan needs to take, as Prime Minister said, he is very much right in his approach. There should be a roadmap for it. If the Indian government shows that they approach, because negotiations always become successful if both sides are serious about it. There should be some concessions from both sides. They should be seriously deliberating about it. Negotiations should continue. Eventually, CBMs and trade should continue. When the people of both countries visit each other, they see there is not much hatred as they see on media, because media always lies, especially Indian media. 115 channels were uncovered who was just spreading hate about Pakistan, Indian chronicles. This kind of things, this kind of tactics, if they are stopped, I personally believe the hatred among the people on both sides, they can especially think positively about each other. And if the mistrust goes away, I believe the Kashmir is a bilateral issue. Both sides can decide very well, and Kashmiris are the main stakeholders. It should be resolved in the light of the will of the Kashmiri people, and Nine Nation resolutions are pretty clear about that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rizwan Naseer, foreign
Very
affairs
well.
expert, talking to us about the way forward as far as the talks between Pakistan and India are concerned. As far as the Pakistani stance is concerned, our Prime Minister is very clear on that, the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir issue needs to be put on the front line when it comes to talks between the two countries, and only then can they move forward. Now, let's go to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen. That concerns the FATF and, of course, the Asia Pacific Group on money laundering that has improved Pakistan's rating on 21 of the 40 technical recommendations of the FATF against money laundering and terror financing, but it has retained it on enhanced flow-up for sufficient outstanding requirements. More in the following report.
The re-rating of Pakistan by the Asia-Pacific Group on Money Laundering, a regional affiliate of Paris-based Financial Action Task Force, depicts that Pakistan is generally compliant or largely compliant with 31 out of 40 Financial Action Task Force technical recommendations. The second follow-up report on mutual evaluation of Pakistan released by the APG also downgraded the country on one criteria. In a nutshell, Pakistan is now fully compliant with 7 recommendations and largely compliant with 24 others. Thus, Pakistan has made outstanding progress in addressing the technical compliance deficiencies identified by APG and has been re-rated on 22 recommendations. Pakistan has demonstrated its resolve and sincerity in addressing the loopholes and its terror financing in money laundering regime. The re-rating of Pakistan on various technical fronts depicts the arduous and painful journey of Islamabad to contemplate irreversible and sustainable measures in short span time. Islamabad not only embraced the challenge to follow one of the most comprehensive plan ever given by Financial Action Task Force to any country, it also succeeded in reviving its economy, which is expected to grow by nearly 4% in 2021, exceeding initial projections.
Now, to talk more about this, we've been joined by Dr. Noor. She's a political economist. Dr. Sahiba, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Sahiba, how do you see this decision that has been taken by the FATF, of course, on improving Pakistan's rating on 21 of the 40 technical recommendations? Do you feel more should have been done from their end?
Yes, I think we have been talking about this off and on. The issue is this, that Pakistan is going through such a situation that observing all of the 23 or 24 points was quite a commendable thing for Pakistan so far. And it seems like we have been facing the implication of word politics in this issue. But as far as Pakistan's initiative of FATF observation, which were 27 all in all, Pakistan has done quite adequate measures, and Pakistan has taken all what it takes for Pakistan to get out of the grey list.
Now, of course, Dr. Sahiba, Pakistan is compliant on 31 out of the 40 FATF recommendations. The 9 that are left, do you feel they are achievable in the short term?
They are achievable, but it will take time, not in short term, because it requires a lot of not only the legislation but also implementation. Or of course, implementation requires the institutional setup, and it takes time. But initially, the intent of Pakistan is very clear, that Pakistan wants to observe all those point or all those observation which has been set by FATF for Pakistan to be implemented.
Dr. Sahiba, when it comes to largely compliant or fully compliant, because this is what the FATF in its report has said, that Pakistan is now fully compliant with 7 and largely compliant with 24 recommendations. What's the difference between fully compliable and largely compliable?
Now they want Pakistan to basically monitor all those what we have done already, which is completed, and they say that there no more expedition required. Expedition is already done by Pakistan, so now they want more monitoring. Whatever has been done, that should be consistent, and then whatever is left, it should be completed.
Now, of course, Dr. Sahiba, the reporting date of this evaluation was the 1st of October 2020. Since then, a lot of developments have taken place from the Pakistani end as well.
Yes.
Do you feel from here till the time the FATF meets again, there will be a further improvement as Pakistan's compliance is concerned?
Pakistan is, Pakistan banking sector, Pakistan's law enforcement agencies, and Pakistan's more implementation of laws that shows that Pakistan is very rigorously working on this terrorist financing, and Pakistan is convicting people, and they are being punished as well. So that is what's obviously being seen by the people, by the world now, and now it is more of a thing towards, we can say, of the diplomatic efforts on behalf of Pakistan and Pakistan friends internationally.
Now, Dr. Saiba, Pakistan was downgraded to non-compliant on 2 of the recommendations, that is 37 and 38, due to insufficient progress. This is what has been said by the FATF, and I quote, and pertain to mutual legal assistance with other countries and freezing and confiscation of assets and accounts. Pakistan has been going forward in the right direction as far as these 2 steps are concerned as well. Why the question marks from the FATF?
I think if you look at the politics, that's what I'm referring time and again. India is the major factor which is trying Pakistan to stay in the grey list, and Pakistan has also to work on its friends, particularly on China, which has not backed Pakistan in FATF forum previously. So this is all about mostly about the politics, and we need to get to work. There is a lot of work to be done on this also, to bring things, for instance, to work on the diplomatic front, and to basically get many commitments from other friendly countries.
When you talk of commitments from other friendly countries, we know that China is of course siding with Pakistan, so is Turkey, so are some other friendly countries. What can Pakistan do, what should Pakistan do in order to further gather the support and the confidence of other nations?
Because EU, particularly European Union, and particularly you look at the US, they will be more happy that if Pakistan is still in the grey list because of the certain forces and certain politics. So if Pakistani diplomacy can work on that we can get support from them. So it will be very easy for us to deal with the certain negative move of India in that FATF.
All right, Dr. Saiba, when it comes to FATF and the relationship with Pakistan, you've said that India has been one of the spoilers as far as that is concerned, but India itself is embroiled in so many issues that could make it be placed on the blacklist very easily. Why is that not happening?
I think if you look at the lobbying kind of a thing, which is a very much a reality of this world politics, they are very much successful in their lobbying against the Pakistan so far. So actually, we are not very wishful for any country to become the part of this grey list, but we are, of course, we desire that we should get out of this grey list, and for that we need help of our friendly countries.
All right. Ma'am, these, of course, recommendations have come after the second follow-up report of the FATF. When is the next follow-up report coming up?
They gave us the time till June this 2021. So
we are in June
now. We are in June, so I think there will be a chance for their associated committees to meet and to evaluate Pakistan's performance.
What are the chances of Pakistan staying on the grey list and or maybe moving to the white list?
For me, I will stay very optimistic that the Pakistan should move to the white list now. Pakistan has done adequately. Pakistan has dealt with the issue, and Pakistan is already losing $1 million through which should have come through foreign investment had we been in a white list already.
All right, and finally, of course, of all the measures that Pakistan has taken as per to be compliant with what the FATF is requiring of Pakistan to do you feel that other countries are also being put under the same measure as far as being compliant with the FATF conditions are concerned, or is this just specific to certain countries that include Pakistan?
I think it is just for the certain country, which is including Pakistan also. And of course, there was certain circumstances for that relating to terrorist financing or terrorist measure or anti-terrorism measurement. But Pakistan has done already. Pakistan is coming up to all the expectation of all those nations who expected Pakistan to deal with that. So now this is the time for them to basically rewarding Pakistan for all those measures which Pakistan has taken. It's very difficult decision making from for Pakistan country and Pakistani, of course, policy makers to come up to these expectations.
All right, you talked about diplomatic efforts that Pakistan needs to kind of aggressively pursue in order to build up on the relationship with those countries that are behind the FATF so that Pakistan comes up stronger as far as their support is concerned. We've seen our Prime Minister go to all the different important organizations and talk about important issues that plague the world and the Muslim world in particular. We've seen our Foreign Minister talk to so many of his counterparts. What more needs to be done in your point of view? Being a political economist, what needs to be done to further strengthen Pakistan politically and economically? On the diplomatic front, that is.
Political leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan is there. He can build a narrative, and through the statements, through the participation of different forum, through meeting to different head of states, there is a narrative built of Pakistan that Pakistan is forward-looking country, Pakistan looking for the investment, and Pakistan is doing all what it takes for the investment and for a country, terrorist-free financing country. But it is not only for a political leadership or only for a person as a leader, but of course it has to come down to its machinery, to its all kind of other bureaucracy and the diplomatic setup itself. And then they have to actually present Pakistan in a way that Pakistan is doing all these kind of a thing which we have already done, and that has to be mentioned in international forum, in all that kind of meetings, and diplomatically the people have to be enlightened, and they have to be informed, and there should be awareness campaign also outside the Pakistan that this was the Pakistan doing and this was the Pakistan strength, and we need to have a narrative of a positive Pakistan, which will of course cultivate a lot of favor to Pakistan in such forums.
All right, and finally, Dr. Saiba, how do you see the efforts that Pakistan has put in the last year or so as far as compliance with the FATF is concerned? Because we've talked of these very recent
Sorry,
reports.
I'm not able to hear you.
Okay, can you hear us now, Dr. Saiba?
Yes. It's
all
quite
right.
actually disturbing.
All right.
Yeah.
Dr. Noor Fatima, my final question to you is that how do you view the progress that Pakistan has undertaken in order to slowly and steadily comply with all the preconditions of the FATF? If you had to look back at the 1 year or 1.5 year, how would you rate the progress Pakistan has made?
I'm sorry, I was not able to hear you properly, but if you're asking about the Pakistan progress, which has been taken from like 2018 to onward, when Pakistan was when Pakistan was placed in a grey list. So far, Pakistan, I think Pakistan was not a country in the beginning. If 2018 FATF kind of thing and all these kind of observation which was told Pakistan to meet observation. So it was all was kind of a new thing for Pakistan's social in a given Pakistan socio-economic condition. So Pakistan had to come up with certain institutional setup, laws, rules, and regulations. And Pakistani society was not even what is the terrorist financing and how to go about all these kind of a procedure, how to educate people, and how to basically go after them. Because these are the things they have a new technological innovation and technological knowledge, which of course was a new thing for Pakistan's Pakistan setup also. So all that legal procedures, all that kind of legal setup, courts setup, and bringing them into conviction, and also all that implementation, and before implementation that laws which has been which has been made by our law legislatures. These all were things which was very difficult for a given situation of Pakistan, which
Of
Pakistan
course,
has
that
gone
is so true, but Pakistan has made a lot of progress on that front. Thank you very much, Dr. Noor. Fatima Sahiba, political economist, joining us to talk about the FATF and the developments that have taken place as far as Pakistan is concerned. And she seems quite optimistic that Pakistan will be put on the whitelist in the next meeting of the FATF. Let's hope it happens that way. Let's go to our next story, that is Pakistan's success in reviving its economy despite the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a report that the famous magazine Forbes has published in its magazine. The US magazine has also lauded the Pakistani government's efforts as far as combating the pandemic is concerned. It says even the US and India faced difficulties in dealing with the pandemic, but Pakistan faced it in a brilliant manner. And of course, it also talks about the prudent policies that Pakistan has undertaken that will make its growth grow by around 4% this year. It also talks about the successful management to tackle the pandemic, the success of the IMF program, the 4% GDP growth, of course, that we've talked about. And it says that it has exceeded the initial estimates that other countries had as far as Pakistan is concerned. And the State Bank of Pakistan, of course, we know that it has had initially forecast a 3% increase in the GDP, but now it is proposed that it will be around 4%. The services sector, which is projected to grow at a rate of 4.43% in 2020-21, also has contributed significantly to the overall growth. This is also what the Forbes magazine has said. It also compares Pakistan's situation with that in India, where, of course, there is incredible increase in the number of COVID-19 cases and 338,013 deaths as far as India is concerned. So, of course, Pakistan is being praised by the international publications, especially a very important publication such as the Forbes magazine that puts Pakistan on a pedestal as far as the way it has combated COVID-19 and has come out winners. Let's go to our next story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the successful World Environment Summit that was hosted by Pakistan on the 5th of this month, ladies and gentlemen. The World Environment Day was celebrated, and Pakistan had the occasion to host this Global World Environment Day Summit. The theme this year was ecosystem restoration, and of course this was a plan for the next 10 years. And our Prime Minister, of course, talked on this issue as well, and all the different measures that have been taken by the current government, whether it be the 10 billion tree tsunami, whether it be the no plastic use policy, whether it be the electric vehicle policy also that has been put into place, the green bond, the blue bond, and so many other of course processes that the government has put into place or is putting into place so that Pakistan can reduce the effects of climate change, because as you very well know that Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries to be affected by climate change, even despite the fact that its emissions are not as high as other countries' emissions are. Nevertheless, Pakistan did host this year's World Environment Day, and Pakistan's efforts were lauded by the world leaders at large, talking about the different policies that it has put into place, especially the 10 billion tree tsunami. So whether it be the United Kingdom or the other countries, everybody lauded Pakistan, and of course Pakistan had also the honor of hosting the World Environment Day. A lot of good things happening as far as Pakistan is concerned. Let's go towards our last segment, and that concerns polio. Ladies and gentlemen, polio is a crippling disease that affects children, and as you very well know, that many drives have occurred across Pakistan as far as this disease is concerned. Of late, another polio campaign of varied duration begins in 124 districts of Pakistan starting from today. That is Monday. Polio, of course, the officers will be going across these 124 districts to administer the polio drops to the children who are below 5 years of age. The health department of all the provinces have also appealed to the parents to get their children vaccinated against the polio virus. It's very important, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because polio cripples your children. You have seen all the children that have gotten the polio disease and they cannot stand properly on their own 2 feet. It's pertinent in this condition that a country that needs its younger generation to be strong mentally and physically, it is pertinent that they get this COVID-19. Of course, it is very pertinent, but also polio vaccine for the children below 5 years of age. So whoever is listening, whoever wants to contribute to a stronger Pakistan needs to give their child who is below 5 years of age those polio drops. We will be looking forward to a much positive response this time. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segments and stories that matter to you and to us. Till then, stay safe, get yourself vaccinated. Allah Hafiz. It's an excellent initiative, Dr. Zubair, Khalid, you and your team, because it will go a long way in curtailing these incidents that happen around the clock every day. People using their mobile phones, not wearing their seat belts and exceeding the speed limits without endangering the law enforcing agents. So congratulations, and we'll be talking to you inshallah soon when you come up with new products, Dr. Saab.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you for your time.
All right. And let's come to our final story of the day, and that concerns Malala Yousafzai, the Nobel Peace Laureate of Pakistani origin. She has been put on the cover of Vogue, the British Vogue magazine, for the month of July 2021. Now, she has also said a lot of good things as far as the power of education is concerned. We've heard what she said about the power of a pen. And now she says that she knows the power that a young girl carries in her heart when she has a vision and a mission. And she said that she hopes that every girl who sees the cover will know she can change the world. She also said, she also talked about the power that an important person that like her can wield over the different communities across the world. And of course, the cover that Vogue's British edition has come up with Malala Yousafzai has had a lot of praise from different sections of the society, not only in Pakistan, but also across the globe. Some criticism, as always, because that is part of any democracy, because you can't have the positive without the negative. Nevertheless, to have a Pakistani Nobel laureate at such a tender age, not only talking about education, working for the purpose of education across the world, but also becoming a symbol for magazines such as Vogue to put on their cover, goes a long way as far as establishing the name and the repute of people like Malala Yousafzai. So of course, we'll be seeing much more of her, I'm sure, in the days and the months to come, and many others like her. It will give inspiration to others who are working in the same field as well, to work with the same determination and the same passion. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with an interesting aspect on climate change. Till then, stay tuned. Allah Hafiz.
जो देखो तो ये जिंदगी है मुश्किलों का ढेर ही, यूं हार मान के बैठना क्या हल है ये पता नहीं। ये दरिया जान का प्यासा है और कातिल किसके था, गर जीना है तो लड़ना है दरिया के इस पार।
And congratulations to Shoaib Sultan. Congratulations to Khaba Aziz for having won Best Actress at the New York City International Film Festival 2021. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories, new segments and stories that matter. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.